What's poppin', y'all? I got called out, and it was by none other than Swae Lee. So if you guys have been unfamiliar, I did a previous video a couple of days ago on Swae Lee and how I was recommending a song, Flammable, that he released about a month ago. And then we would get the announcement that his album was going to end up dropping. So that album, the rollout started for that album. The album is Same Difference. And in the tweet that I put out, which was after I dropped the video, I said, I don't understand why Swae Lee doesn't just release bi-weekly singles. Better chance for one of the songs to catch fire instead of dropping an entire album that is likely dead on arrival. And the reason I said this is because the first song, Flammable, like you just look at through my comments, and my comments are a sub-niche of the general hip-hop listener. So it's someone that's active enough in hip-hop that not only listens to the music, but is willing to have discussions and listen to people talk about what's going on in the hip-hop/rap music scene. So that's even a little bit deeper than the average person. And then, or the average hip-hop listener, which is deeper than the average person. And then most of them were like, oh, I didn't even know Swae Lee dropped. Same thing with the recent song that he just dropped with Rich the Kid. That song was Don't Even Call. He dropped the video for both of those songs. Flammable had more time. That came out about a month ago. That song, it didn't catch fire. It did not turn into a hit. It did not spread everywhere. Like Lil Uzi Vert's song. What was that one? You know which song I'm talking about. I forget the name, but I remember the hook off the top of my head. But Swae Lee replies and he says, L take. I can do both. I dropped singles. I got billions of streams. It's time to take it to the next level. I gave them songs. I want to give my fans more. I got, what is this, 2 million songs? That's looks what it, 3. Yeah, this is 2,383. No, this is more than that. 23 million songs in his hard drive and dropping them all before he dies. Yeah, I think he just gassed up the number. It's probably 20,000. I would say in the 20,000s. And this is the thing. I don't know if Swae Lee's a little bit delusional right now. Because I asked him, well, why'd you keep us waiting for 6 years? Because I'm somebody that's actively looking for new Swae Lee music. Like, the reason why I found that song by Swae Lee was I was like, yo, what the hell has Swae Lee been up to? And then I see that he dropped something. Do you think the majority of people that have heard a Swae Lee song are randomly thinking, what is Swae Lee up to? No, they're not. They're listening to what's right in front of them. They're worried about what they got to do for work tomorrow. There's so many other thoughts and things that are occupying their mind that is not Swae Lee, even if they enjoyed his music and would listen to it if somebody played it for them. So I think Swae Lee is in a bit of a bubble because Swae Lee is so successful as a music artist, as I wouldn't say a legacy act, even though he's been in the game for 10 years, that I don't think he realizes what his position is currently and if people are paying attention to what he's going to put out or have any excitement for what he's going to put out in the way that I do. And you're probably wondering, well, how does he not know that? Well, here's the thing. When you're a Swae Lee, think about who Swae Lee is ever around. Number one, Swae Lee is probably getting approached by fans whenever he goes out. So he thinks he's still popping. He's still got motion. Well, Swae Lee's one of the most recognizable people. And the thing is, the only people that are going to recognize you are the people that know who you are. And you were famous. Yeah, does he get recognized more than Slim Jimmy? For sure. But also, you got to take into consideration, he's mostly in the studio. And he's got a team. And they're not going to tell him, hey, Swae Lee, buddy, you fell off 6 years ago. What's been going on? People have been waiting, or no, people stopped waiting for this solo album. Because the best way that I can contrast this is with the Migos. So if you guys remember, there was a period of time when the Migos were going crazy. Post-Culture 2. Well, Culture 1 was huge. I would say that was their peak musically. A lot of people like Culture 1. I think Culture 2. I think Culture 1 was way better. But Culture 2 was their peak commercially. And this started to drum up a lot of attention as well as conversations about, who's the better Migos member? Who's the better? Oh, the Migos. They used to call Quavo the Beyonce of the Migos. Yeah, if you're newer to hip-hop, you're probably like, what the hell? They're tripping for calling him that. Well, they did call him that for a long time. And there was a high demand for a solo Quavo project. Now, what happened was Quavo did a project with Travis Scott because he would cross-collaborate with Travis Scott a lot. Quavo, Travis, and Young Thug are one of the most underrated collaborators, and they collaborated so often you would think they were unofficial duos. I mean, Young Thug was taken on his first real tour by Travis Scott. He was opening up for Travis Scott. But Quavo would do Huncho Jack Huncho, which was a collab album slash mixtape with Travis Scott. And that was done in 2018, I think it was. No, 2017. So that one was not a solo project. It was a collaboration project. Yeah, I'm 100% sure it was done before that. But he would release his solo project, Quavo Huncho, in 2018. And this one would go gold, but it fell flat. Like people commercially, it did very, very well, but people were not messing with it. Like there wasn't a hit out of this. They were just like, okay, we understand why we don't want you on here. The thing is, Offset also released. So keep in mind, 2018, this is after some quality control mixtapes, but Offset, he would also release his first album, Father of Four, his first solo album, in 2019, February 2019. Quavo released October of 2018, so a couple of months later. And who would also release? Takeoff would also release his album, Rocket Power, in 2018. He would release very soon after or before, I think it was. No, it was after Quavo. So he would release really soon after Quavo. Now, QC was on the ball with this. Like, they were on point. Coach K&P, these guys are on it. So they had them all release their solo projects right when everyone was demanding their solo projects. And then, of course, sadly, Takeoff would pass away, and they would do a duo project that is only built for Cuban links, I think it was. That one was released in 2022. That was Quavo and Takeoff. And Offset would continue to release solo projects, which I think his solo catalog is very strong, including Without Warning, that I somewhat consider a project of Offset's more than anybody else. Even though it's like a Metro Boomin project, I just really remember Offset on there. Yeah, 21 is on there, but the way I remember it, Offset is what comes out to me. So how does this compare to Swae Lee? Well, Swae Lee, Ray Shremmerd, there was Slim Jimmy. Slim Jimmy was always more of the rapper, but people are always like, yo, what's going on with these guys? Like, when are they going to drop a project of their own? Especially Shrem Life 1, bangers, top to bottom. Shrem Life 2, you get Black Beatles, bangers. And then you get Unforgettable. And then that's where Swae Lee had all of the momentum to drop. And this was leading up into 2020. What did Swae Lee not do? Drop. He didn't drop an album. Now, he did this whole rollout. I talked about it in the previous video. I'll have that linked if I don't forget and if I don't get lazy. So it's really a coin flip, whether you see it there or not. But I talked about how he had this whole rollout was going on. His hard drive got stolen. He was trying to put out an album, and that all stopped. All of it. It stopped. And with that, the hype for a Swae Lee album in 2026, which is 6 years after there was any type of hype from that hard drive situation, is non-existent. Yeah, Swae Lee's gotten billions of streams since then, but how much anticipation is there? That's the difference between these. And you got a nice feature list on here. You've got Nav, okay, you know. Nah, I like Nav, but when you tell somebody, yo, we've got a crazy feature list, and you tell them Nav, it's not like their eyes are going to light up and their ears are going to go up like a bear that's standing on its hind legs. Jhené Aiko, you've got French Montana. Okay, that's really, people are not really too excited. But you got Post Malone, which is really the highlight. And Slim Jimmy, of course. I think Slim Jimmy, it's mandatory that you have Slim Jimmy on there. Do you hear anybody talking about this? Do you hear excitement around it? And people tried to like go against me in the Twitter replies, which, God. X has, I thank God every day for the YouTube comment section, or I don't know, maybe it's just my YouTube comment section where I can just comfortably read it and people have actual takes. It may not be takes I agree with. It may not be takes that agree with me, but it's like, okay, I can understand where this person comes from. This person is giving a knowledgeable take. They know what they're talking about. X, these people don't know what they're talking about, but you got to think, like, what's the lowest barrier to entry? Somebody just replying to something on X without any context, just ripping BS. So a lot of people are like, nah, you know, like, Swae Lee's the most poppin', this and that. The thing is, they didn't even know Swae Lee was dropping until I talked about it on X, at least. They're like, oh, I didn't know Swae Lee was dropping. Yeah, well, that's my whole point. My whole point is that Swae Lee, there is no demand for a Swae Lee album right now. Nobody is saying we need a Swae Lee album. So that's why I said, well, if he's just dropping track by track here and there, we know Swae Lee is active again. Because the majority of people within hip hop, we don't know if Swae Lee's active. Well, I do, but they don't know. They're just listening to all this other stuff. So when they find out that Swae Lee is active, then they're more likely to pay attention attention to an eventual album. And really, he could just package all the stuff and put it together in an album later and just, like kind of release it. Like a lot of these independent or guys with not duo deals, JV deals, that's what they're doing. I know Russ did this, but Artemis was goated artist. This guy's freaking amazing. That's what he did. Like he was dropping maybe a song every 2 weeks, every month or so. And then suddenly I just saw it put together as an album. And I was like, oh, okay, this is cool. And I listened to all of those songs. And all of those songs have a similar amount of streams as opposed to the first singles that you release having more streams and the first song on the project having more streams. And then most of the songs, like songs 6 through 10, are just dead. And that's why I don't understand how he's telling me L take. It's an L take for me to want you to have each song get as much possible attention that it possibly can so that people are aware of Swae Lee coming back again. And then you can just drop another album. Because what's going to happen, like I said, the album's going to drop. We're going to come back and revisit it for the sales. And then after a couple of days, the conversation's going to stop. If a hit doesn't catch from the album, which is far less likely, what's going to happen to the music? It's not going to reach the amount of people that I believe Swae Lee's music deserves to reach, which is a lot, which is millions upon millions. And I think, or at least I thought, Swae Lee was more of an artist that was focused on just making the music and didn't really want to do tours or bookings or anything like that. Because when do you really see Swae Lee get booked like that? I don't know if he's not choosing to, because there are certain artists that don't want to tour, that do not like touring. Michael Jackson would famously talk about how much he hated touring, how much he hated preparing for touring. And if you're not an artist, or maybe if you're like an upcoming artist, it's hard to understand, like, why would a person hate touring? Like, you get to see all your fans, you get to perform, you get this huge bag. There is such a crazy stress to touring that people don't see. And on top of that, some people just like to make music. Like performers, they like to perform. And some people make music and they perform. But some people just like to make music. And if they didn't have to, they wouldn't perform. For instance, 21 Savage, he didn't go on tour for a very long time. And he would talk about like he would hate to go on tour. He's making so much money that he doesn't have to go on tour. Eventually, he would go on tour with Drake. He would go on tour with J. Cole. I think now he's somewhat active as a touring artist. But for the most part, he didn't. And Party Next Door is another example of this. And even his manager would talk about Party Next Door was just so focused on making the music that he didn't want to be famous.
Right. So when Party and I got together early, he was really clear of like, yeah, I want to live a normal life. Like, I know I do music and I know I want to do it at a high level, but like, I'm not doing this to be the most famous person on the planet. Like, I'm doing this because I'm an artist and I love to make music and I want to produce at the highest level. Cool. Now we can shape a career around that people aren't a fan of him because of his personality. They're a fan of him because of his music and his art and what he contributes.
So here's an example of somebody that's written number ones. He wrote a number one song for Rihanna. He's helped Drake write songs. He's one of my favorite artists. I mean, his first 2 tapes, a lot of people, including myself, were wondering like, yo, why isn't this guy bigger? Why isn't he more popping? Part of it is likely his image and maybe some self-image issues, because he's had large fluctuations in weight where he's been on the thinner side to where he started off obese, then maybe leaned towards more of the thinner side, then went a little bit like overweight, and that's fluctuated. And being a type of artist that makes the music that he does, your image needs to be on point all the time. But I think he just is somebody that likes to write. He likes to write, he likes to make music, and he likes to have a private life, and he doesn't want to be going from city to city constantly hopping on shows and doing performances. But if you are an artist and you're not active and you're not constantly getting booked, you don't see your booking price decline. That's really the indicator that, okay, wait, I'm not as popping as I was. But with the Swae Lee, he is probably really only doing festivals. We haven't seen him do a tour yet other than with Ray Shremmerd. So maybe he hasn't seen that decline because he just has generational songs. But listen, all we can do is wait, see this album drop, and then see what happens. So let's see a couple of weeks. Let's see 2 weeks after this album. Will people be listening to it, or will it be DOA? Like, let's see what the sales look like for Swae Lee. Oh, also another point that I wanted to make is that he's talking about, in his hard drive dropping them before all he dies. I said, well, why'd you keep people waiting for 6 years? Because it's not even like he was dropping singles, EPs, mixtapes, nothing. He didn't drop anything for 6 years. So that's also, I wanted to know the reasoning behind that. And I probably won't ever get the reasoning behind that because, I don't talk to this guy. But these are things I'm genuinely curious about. What has to happen for 6 years to go by of Swae Lee not releasing anything? especially when it seemed like he was about to drop something and nothing dropped. And that's why I thought it wasn't his fault. I thought it was somebody else's fault. Like maybe his label was like, this isn't the right time to drop. Eventually they did drop Shrem for Life in 2023, but his solo project was supposed to release before that. And Shrem for Life, it didn't have a single song that stuck. But let me know what y'all think in the comments. Like and subscribe and hit the notification bell if you enjoyed. And I'm going to see y'all in the next one.